In the beginning, he knew we would need a partner to work, to play, to teach, and to love. So God made a horse. He knew we needed to pull our cannons, carry our troops, protect our freedoms. So God made a horse. He knew we needed to hunt, to carry our burdens, to feed our family, and to mend fences. So God made a horse. He knew we needed our fields plowed, our hay delivered, our cattle branded, our goods distributed. He knew we needed to get to work, get to the store, deliver the mail, and share the word. So God made a horse. He knew we needed to get out of the city, spend time with our friends, grow up with our family, connect with our kids. We needed to sweat, to learn the value of work, of honesty and integrity. We needed help through our difficulties, lift in our challenges, support with our disabilities, and to share our joy. So God made a horse. He knew we all need a friend, a companion, a partner, and a soulmate to get away from it all, experience life, live, laugh, cry, and love. So God made a horse.
Horses are creatures who worship the earth. They gallop on feet of ivory, constrained by the wonder of dying and birth. The horses still run, they are free. My body is merely the shell of my soul, but the flesh must be given its due. Like a pony that carries its rider back home, like an old friend who's tried and been true. I had a vision of eagles and horses high on the ridge in the race to the head, going higher and higher, faster and faster, on eagles and horses. I'm flying again. Eagles inhabit the heavenly heights. They know neither limit nor bound. They're the guardian angels of darkness and light. They see all and hear every sound. My spirit will never be broken nor caught, for the soul's a free flying thing, like an eagle that needs neither comfort nor thought to rise up on glorious wings. I had a vision of eagles and horses high on a ridge in a race to win, going higher and higher, faster and faster, on eagles and horses. I'm flying again, flying again, I'm flying again. my soul. But the flesh must be given its due, like a pony that carries its master back home, like an old friend who's tried and been true. My spirit will never be broken nor caught, for the soul is a free-flying thing, like an eagle that needs neither comfort nor thought, to rise up on glorious wings. I had a vision of eagles and horses, high on a wing in a race with the wind, going higher and higher, faster and faster, like eagles and horses. I'm flying again, flying again, flying again, flying again. I'm flying again.
They have strongly Spanish blood in them.
Well, I never been to Spain.
The Surbat horses are one of that unique, rare group of horses.
But I can't
They are not being able to roam freely.
They have some odd quirks.
If we don't do something soon, that Sarabad herd will be eliminated.
There's something very spiritual and wild looking about these Spanish horses.
Success. I'd lost track of what it was or why I ever wanted to chase it. Maybe it was deadline stress or a calling from my youth in Montana, or just the numbing of sameness. I had vacation coming, my little time space, and I knew they still existed somewhere. The Surbat Mountains of northwest Arizona are home to the only Spanish Mustangs in the state, and they are one of only 5 pure wild Spanish Mustang herds left in the country. There are the Shacklefords of North Carolina and 4 out west, Montana's Pryors, Southeast Oregon's Kygers, the Sulphurs of southwest Utah, and the Surbats.
The Surbat horses are one of that unique, rare group of horses.
They are magnificent animals. Not only are they wild by law, but they are wild by nature, and they're highly adaptive.
The range is just north of Kingman. A lot of locals have never seen one. Well, I figured, I'm not local.
Gosh, it could be anywhere. I'll go back a little further. Try the next one. Maybe I'll just stop and talk to a rancher up here. This is where it starts to get a little tricky. The Surbats are 50 to 60 miles long. There's about 50 to 60 horses. The chances of finding them aren't that great. Let the search begin.
Like any great male explorer, I got lost. But I found an oasis and help.
Bach Canyon?
Yeah, and it's like the 17-mile marker back down this way.
How far from here?
Connie Childers runs a store on the east slope of the Surbats, and it's a great refuge for a half-crazy looking for horses.
You'd try to, get close to them, and they'd go over the top of the peak just about the time you'd get there.
Her advice? Find their water source and approach with caution.
Well, Brock Canyon, here we go. I can just keep that clutch working. Whoa!
Looking for any sign of life in those hillsides, I suddenly saw a couple dark shapes.
There's something very spiritual and wild looking about these Spanish horses.
Well, there's horses right there. My goodness, I can't tell. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 head. Let me see that one sticking his head up. They have long manes. That's a good sign. Oh, their tails are down low on their rear end.
There's a family up in the Surbat Mountains.
They look a little more like Surbats. They could be right in front of me, or they could be long gone, galloping away. Maybe they heard me. I don't know. Let's see. Okay.
The Indians up there said they didn't belong to them. So apparently the horses had been there for generations and generations. They do test out genetically with blood tests as being of Spanish origin.
Si lo vamos por el Valle de Cortés, oh, chocolate. Pásale, pásale, dale. Párale, cala.
At first, of course, the Mexican Indians were very afraid of this thing they thought was one being, which really was a Spanish rider and horse.
It was the Italian-born Christopher Columbus who convinced King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain to find the New World. His ships made it to the turquoise blue waters of the Caribbean in 1493. He called it the West Indies. He established horse colonies there. It's believed the Spanish treated horses aboard the galleons well, better than most people.
Chulo, chulo! Vámonos!
It takes a while for those Spanish colonial breeding farms to get going, and then of course the conquistadors are coming up into the interior of the United States somewhere around 1515.
Not long after, Coronado discovered the Grand Canyon less than 50 miles from the Surbat Mountains and turned some of his horses loose. From there, it was on to a no-rules-apply American West of the late 1800s, full of men who carried guns on their hip and shot Mustangs like buffalo. If they couldn't kill them, they'd do their best to break their spirit.
We had a mass extermination of wild horses. They were killed by some of the most grisly methods imaginable, all basically to exterminate them to make way for livestock.
They go back to the early history of our country.
It's all right. Oh, you're a beautiful horse. I just wanted to hang out with the wild Surbats. They didn't have to gallop or perform for me. I just wanted to feel a little of what they feel.
Free, you know, and you don't get to see very many really free things.
Well, I never been to Spain.
Hey there.
But I kinda like the music.
Okay.
See the ladies all insane there. And they sure know how to use it. They don't abuse it, never gonna lose it, I don't refuse it.
There's a deep connection between the horse and the soul of every person. It may have been forgotten in the last 100 years because of the automobile, but that far cellular memory is there. There is a connection.
Spanish and most wild horses are known for their personalities. They resemble us more than we'd care to admit. Wild displays of emotion are often quickly followed by true compassion and forgiveness. Occasionally, a local will capture a Surbat and fence it up in plain view of its former herd. You can see a change in the horse's eyes. It was March when I first found the Bay band of Surbats. I began to call them the lower herd. They were a tight family with their own social structure, and the stallions immediately stood out. But the mares are the real keepers of the herd, and you realize that the stallions are there more to protect them. Their sparring defines the Mustang.
but they're preparing themselves for stallionhood, and that's called play fighting.
They've always seen you long before you see them, and you'll only get as close as they allow. At the very least, their curious nature had taken over. Out of good ideas, I tried singing to them. It worked.
They're intelligent, and they learn very quickly.
Mary Ann Thompson knows the bloodline better than anyone. 450 miles from the wild Surbats, in the opposite corner of Arizona near the old rail town of Wilcox, she's quietly raised Surbat Mustangs taken directly from the herd 34 years ago.
They much prefer to be handled by one person.
She got them from a man who said he was saving them from drought. Wild horses are now federally protected, but the Bureau of Land Management, or BLM, is steadily reducing their numbers, and many experts fear that wild Surbats are on their way to extinction. With Mary Ann, these horses are safe. She says they have personalities like no others.
I think they have a sense of humor, actually, that most horses aren't supposed to. I had one filly that carried a stick around with her, much like a child would a doll, for months.
A 2-year-old Surbat filly named Doma de Sonora is a living mix of tame and wild that can never be bred out.
They do some strange things, but the things they do shows intelligence.
Got a nap going here, just so you know. Arms length, legs length, that applies too, legs length. You're coming back for more? You woke me up now. You're looking at yourself in the reflection of the glass, aren't you? You're saying, I'm the prettiest Mustang? Now you're looking at yourself in the mirror. You're beautiful. Yes, you are. Pretty.
There were 2 wild Surbats who were letting me connect. A pregnant black mare with a white stripe on her forehead, and a young stallion that I guessed for her son.
You look at wild horses, you see that they have tremendous personalities. They really haven't been tainted by human beings. They haven't been subjugated by human beings. And a lot of our, the way we condition domestic horses is that we are the lead stallion, we are the lead person, and they will do as they're told. They will do exactly what we want them to do.
As the peace offerings and dialogue with the wild Surbats increased, I couldn't help but think of the second-to-last herd of Spanish Mustangs in Arizona, the Gilas. Wiped off their native range, removed from Arizona, and nearly wiped out, they were saved by one person, Karen Sussman. Distant cousins of the Surbats,
love my boys.
They once roamed together as the great herd of western Arizona.
Not fight, let's all be good.
I had to see them for myself. Maybe it would help me figure out if the Surbats could survive much longer in the wild. By the time April and May had rolled around, the Surbats had grown to tolerate me. And when I approached, it was the black mare with the white stripe that was the first to greet. I was careful not to push them. When they trotted away, I'd break for lunch, or simply leave altogether. I introduced them to my dog Scout. They accepted him much more quickly than me. In fact, Scout was a breakthrough animal. He enticed the curious young stallion to come closer than any wild Surbat had yet dared. He stared us down within a few feet of us. It was nerve-wracking and wildly exhilarating. Afterward, Scout could barely contain his excitement. I wanted to see what lay above 5,000 feet. I'd heard of different colored horses there, one in particular. After a day devoted to finding him, I finally saw the right ridge and the elusive white stallion working nimbly through surprisingly rugged country.
The Surbats are a bit deceiving. These ridges are high up and it's always windswept up on top. The animals have to be athletes. They have to maneuver around rocks and make quick escapes.
They're strong and they're sturdy and they're fast.
I could only find one person who'd seen him. He ran with a black stallion and 3 mares, and he moved with a regal prance. His family was far more skittish than the lower Surbats, and I felt it an honor to have spent the day with them in the high country.
You begin to get rid of your frustrations. You're in another world.
Through it, I couldn't help but feel for the Gilas. They were on my mind as I made my way north, over the great gorge that pushed the Spaniards west nearly 500 years earlier. Although the Gilas had been removed from the Southwest forever, they remained together and free in South Dakota.
See what I mean?
They are primitively marked with leg stripes and two-tone manes, dorsal stripes down their back. The BLM, as it's called, rounded up the Gilas after a rancher complained that they were eating his alfalfa.
4 were killed and 1 was given away. I was told after interviewing down there that there were 75 wild horses left. BLM gathered 36, of which we received 31 wild horses. And when they went to do the census afterward, there were no horses left. They inflate numbers.
With donations and the help of the Lakota Sioux, along with their own money, Karen watches over them on 680 acres as they run wild. It's a compromise solution, but with horse management, it's the trend of the future.
If everyone's kind of a little disgruntled with us, we're probably doing a good job because we haven't made a decision favoring one group or the other.
There's approximately 35,000 horses, perhaps a few more, and there may be over 4 million cattle on the same rangelands.
And I've met with many BLM people. I know many of them. Some of them are very concerned about the wild horses, but then there's another group within the BLM who couldn't care less.
Kelly Grissom was the man in charge of the Surbats during the 90s, heading the Bureau's Kingman office, the holding pen for most of the wild horses and burros in the Southwest. The BLM is what was formerly known as the U.S. Grazing Service.
The U.S. Grazing Service, which was established in 1934 with the Taylor Grazing Act, had a policy of shooting wild horses on sight. So you've got an agency that is now, in 1971, given the mandate to protect an animal which they had actually been eliminating.
The BLM is an agency that didn't want this management.
The Old West still exists at the BLM. These are pictures they don't want the public to see. The young are left to flop in the sun, while the hired hands rope their corral mates, and that can take a while.
So for all intents and purposes, this is an agency that has no accountability whatsoever. So it's terribly cruel. These animals belong in the wild. That's where they should be.
I caught up with Kelly and Lee Higgins getting ready for a BLM adoption in Tucson. Higgins has been with the BLM for over 30 years. The adoption program has put many wild horses into good hands. But while speaking off the cuff, Lee Higgins confirms that some of the horses are still bought to be killed for slaughter.
You know, we ship a lot of stuff to Europe.
There's a good reason why the head of the state's wild horse and burro program has no idea how many wild Surbat Mustangs are in these mountains.
Maybe around 90 or so. We don't really know. We haven't done an inventory.
I don't know a whole lot about them. I've heard rumor that they come from a Spanish bar blood, something like that.
He and his employees are seldom here themselves, and admittedly, their primary reason for contact with these animals over the past decade has been to remove them from the herd.
The lack of scrutiny is ironic. After all, the Surbats are the closest wild herd to the Kingman BLM regional offices. Drive time? About 12 minutes.
Some people don't care at all, and other people really do.
The Surbats eat what it takes to stay alive. Kelly, who's managed the Surbats directly, isn't exactly sentimental about them.
Burros really became my passion. I like, they're smarter than horses.
The agency's public love for burros and what I'd witnessed at the Kingman Corrals was a contradiction that made me feel like I needed a break. I found just the right retreat in Oatman, Arizona, where burros roam the streets freely and the government stays out of their way, which might be a good idea. I worried about them, though, the same way I did about the Surbats. The BLM has proposed reducing burro numbers to just 2,700 nationwide. I was figuring something out. The visible herds, those most public, had the best chance of surviving. And once again, I'd felt a call to head north, where the big Spanish draft mixed bloods, the Wyoming McCulloughs, thrived, along with the famous herd in Montana known as the Pryors. There's no flat way to reach the thriving wild herds of the northern Rockies, so I thought it best to enjoy the ride across the Bighorn Mountains. I bottomed out in Lovell, Wyoming, a Spanish Mustang crossroads. Everybody and their dog knew about wild horses here, especially the Reverend Floyd Schweiger.
How rounded that is. That's a definitely Spanish head.
Reverend Schweiger helped establish the Pryor Range, and the animals, with markings strikingly similar to that of the Gilas, are like his grandchildren. They're not considered one of the 5 pure herds, but the McCulloughs draw a lot of attention. When I first found them, 2 miles from the nearest muddy road, I saw more wild horses on their natural range than I'd ever seen before. So much to take in. A young stallion, trying to copy the family's leader. A bachelor group, happy to be together, but obviously wishing for more. The McCulloughs were thriving. A young colt, perhaps no more than a few weeks old, brought images of the Surbats and their most pregnant and sensitive mare, the black with the white stripe. She'd been trailing the herd, laboring to find even a fast walk.
And, the sad thing is that if we don't do something soon, that Surbat herd will be eliminated.
And I knew her foals faced mountain lions.
It's December now, and it's been 9 months since I first found these horses up here, and I realized how lucky I was earlier in the year to get as close to the animals as I did, because I'm reduced to just finding tracks now.
Then, late one December night, an old friend appeared. Scout and I found the curious young stallion who'd reached out to us in May.
You are so beautiful. You are a fine young stallion. Yes, you are.
That night, it snowed, and he stuck around to see us in the morning.
See, guys? See how I do that?
There was no black mare to be found, and her sister, the pregnant brown mare, had lost her colt. One thing I knew for sure, they'd live on inside me. For a DVD copy of this show, just send $12.99 to Len Johnson Productions. 3305 North Swan Road, number 109, Postal Mailbox 357, Tucson 85712.
Horses are creatures who worship the earth. They gallop unfeed by the reed, constrained by the wonder of dying in birth. The horses still run, they are free. My body is merely the shell of my soul, but the flesh must be given its due, like a pony that carries its rider back home, like an old friend who's driving through. I have a vision of eagles and horses high on the ridge of the raceway, going higher and higher, faster and faster, on eagles and horses are flying again. Eagles inhabit the heavenly heights. They know neither limit nor bound. They're the guardian angels of darkness and light. They see all and hear every sound. My spirit will never be broken nor caught, for the soul's a free flying thing, like an eagle that needs neither comfort nor thought, to rise up on glorious wings. I've had a vision of eagles and horses high on the ridge in a raceway, going higher and higher, faster and faster, on eagles and horses, I'm flying again, flying again, I'm flying again. My body is merely the shell of my soul, but the flesh must be given its due, like a pony that carries its master back home, like an old friend who's tried and been true. My spirit will never be broken nor caught, for the soul is a free flying thing, like an eagle that needs neither comfort nor thought, to rise up on glorious wings. I have a vision of eagles and horses high on the ridge in a raceway, going higher and higher, faster and faster, on eagles and horses, I'm flying again, flying again, flying again, flying again, I'm flying
I'm here to teach you how to help your horse feel safe with you. What horses want is to feel our confidence, that we have a sense of what it is we're going to ask of them, what it is that can make them feel like we are a good leader to follow. And that comes from us believing in ourselves, having a plan, knowing what it is we want to accomplish for the day, and feeling good about what we're doing.
You know, it was kind of a tough day. I've been at work all day. I'm a little stressed.
When we show up feeling flustered or scattered from our day, horses don't know what to trust in us. Step number 1 is to slow your body down. The easiest way to do that and connect with your body is to breathe. So just take a couple of deep, relaxed breaths. There's not a right way to breathe. There's not a wrong way to breathe. Just breathe. Let go of what happened during the rest of your day. Step number 2 is to notice how you're feeling, all the way from physical sensations to emotions to mental things that are going on. And notice that you have anxiety. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to change it. It's okay that it's there. Let it be there. But be aware that it's there so that if you're walking up to your horse with anxiety, you know where it's coming from. Horses notice the anxiety in us and they can respond to that. If we know it's coming from us first and we see our horse start to respond like, oh gosh, what's going on here today? We're aware enough to say, no buddy, that's mine, that's not yours. And even just that acknowledgement can take us out of our mind enough to say, oh, I don't want to feel anxiety right now. Okay, reality check, I'm going to hang out with my horse. Step 3 is coming up with a gentle plan. As you come up with your plan, feel within your own body. Feel it as if it's already happening. You're essentially setting the tone ahead of time, and it's more than just visualizing. You're actually experiencing it before you go. If your plan includes, I only have so much time to get my grooming done, well, great, acknowledge that, that's the truth. How do you want your grooming to go within that period of time? And try not to place rules on yourself about the right way or the wrong way to do it. This is more about finding confidence within yourself to be able to walk forward and enjoy your time with your horse and create a space where your horse can feel safe giving what you're asking for. Step 4 is, how do you want to feel when you're finished with your horse? Can you remember that feeling, that just absolute bursting with love feeling that, yes, this is why I have a horse?
Okay, so the plan. I'm looking for him to drop his head a little bit, maybe turn his ears towards me, look at me, actually walk towards me, and I want to feel a connection with him.
Remember, even though you put together a plan, be ready to abandon your plan. If it looks like it's not working for whatever reason, if it looks like, oh my God, this is causing me more anxiety than not, abandon the plan, do something that feels really good, something that wins your confidence back in yourself, and have a blast.